Imagine walking in on your boss mid-theft, his hands deep in stolen goods, and you know this isn't the first time. But this time, you have proof. Welcome to my story of petty justice turned professional takedown. If you've ever dreamed of exposing a workplace tyrant, or watching karma work overtime, hit that subscribe button. Like, comment, and get ready for a tale where thieves fall hard, and quiet persistence wins. Several years ago, I was grinding through 50-plus hour work weeks as a third-level manager in a small chain grocery store. It wasn't glamorous. In fact, it was hell. The store was in a rough part of town, customers were unpredictable, and I was juggling college at the same time. To top it off, I was stuck on night shifts almost every day, thanks to a store manager who had clearly never heard of work-life balance. Let's talk about the two bosses above me. First, there was Jim, the assistant manager. Picture someone who thinks he's a badass because he owns a motorcycle but couldn't manage his way out of a paper bag. Lazy, loud, and useless. He'd bark orders all day, then park his butt in the office, leaving me to mop up both literal and figurative messes. Then there was Dylan, the store manager. A little smoother, but more dangerous. You know the type, smiles in your face, stabs your back. He played favorites, dodged accountability, and I had this gut feeling he was dipping into things he shouldn't be. But gut feelings don't get people fired. Proof does. At this point, I was hanging on by a thread. I was the only manager working evenings, basically running the store while the higher-ups relaxed. But one night, everything changed. Jim and I were scheduled to work a night shift together to handle a product reorganization. Toward the end of the night, I was counting my cash drawer when Jim said he needed to grab some meat for dinner. No big deal. Until he came back with a 5-pound package of beef priced at an absurdly low $3. Immediately, my manager senses started tingling. The sticker was wrong. I rang him up anyway, silently noting every detail. After he walked away, I reprinted his receipt and pocketed it. That night, I started my investigation. The next morning, I opened the store and headed straight for the butcher room. Boom, the original packaging and price tag were in the trash. The pricing scale still had the fake label loaded. It was clear, Jim had manually changed the price. I grabbed everything. Trash tag, fake sticker, timestamps from the DVR footage showing him making the switch. When Dylan arrived, I calmly handed it all over. He called our district manager, Rocky, who asked Jim to come in the next day. Jim was fired. No benefits. No sympathy. Just gone. I was promoted to assistant manager shortly after. That was win number 1. Fast forward a few months. We got a charity box from St. Jude's Hospital, you know, the ones for collecting quarters for kids with cancer. We did well, around $250 from generous customers. I kept it safe, per instructions. When it came time to send it in, Dylan offered to drop the money at Western Union. Something about the way he said it put me on edge. He came back with no receipt. Said he didn't get one. I didn't buy it. Weeks later, we got a letter from St. Jude, thanking us for a $50 donation. $50. I was furious but couldn't prove it. Not yet. I swallowed the rage and waited. Because karma, like me, is patient. About a year later, I was cleaning floors after another late-night project. Dylan had disappeared for a while. I checked the dairy cooler and found him hunched over a cart filled with groceries, bagged and ready. He panicked when he saw me but played it cool. I didn't say a word. The next morning, he opened the store. I came in later, walked to the cooler. Cart? Gone. I pulled DVR footage. Sure enough, he showed up an hour early, loaded up the cart, wheeled it out to his truck, and returned as if nothing happened. The bags hid most of it, but there was one clue. A jumbo pack of paper towels. We hadn't sold a single one that week. Only one was missing from inventory. I ran a report. No purchases. I had him. That very day, our area manager Rod stopped by. I showed him the footage, the inventory report, everything. Rod didn't hesitate. Dylan was gone. No unemployment, no farewell. Just fired. Dylan had stolen from the store, from customers, from children. He thought no one would notice. But justice doesn't always come loud and fast. Sometimes it creeps in slowly, collected like receipts and timestamps, until it drops like a hammer. I wasn't promoted further. They hired someone else to replace Dylan. But I didn't care. I had my degree and left soon after for a better job, a better life. But every now and then I remember the nights I spent in that rundown grocery store, and how two thieves thought they were untouchable. They were wrong. Justice doesn't always wear a cape. Sometimes, it's just a tired college kid with a sharp eye, a long memory, and access to the security room. The lesson? Don't underestimate the quiet ones. We're just waiting. If this story hit that satisfying justice nerve, hit the like button and subscribe for more Reddit revenge stories like this. Share your thoughts below or tell us, what's the most satisfying workplace karma you've ever seen? Thanks for watching Revenge Podcast. Until next time, stay patient and stay sharp. I got laid off the same morning I returned from the hospital. No warning. No thank you. Just, we're done here. But a few weeks later, they came crawling back, and I said no. 3 times. What happened next? Let's just say karma doesn't send a calendar invite. If you've ever been tossed aside, underestimated, or pushed to your limit, this story is for you. Like, comment, and hit that subscribe button for more true stories where revenge isn't loud, it's poetic. Let's begin. In the early 2000s, I worked at a small PCB design and manufacturing shop. We were just acquired by a tech startup that saw value in our intellectual property. It sounded promising at first, like a marriage of innovation and expertise. But very quickly, the reality set in. The company was tiny, the pressure was massive, and I was caught in the middle of it all. Our biggest client, big customer, accounted for over 80% of our business. Keeping them happy wasn't just a job requirement, it was survival. I handled all their technical and reporting needs, weekly performance reports, monthly failure rate breakdowns, engineering change logs, every dry, soul-draining detail. It wasn't glamorous, but it was vital. Enter the general manager, a clueless suit planted by the parent startup. From day one, we knew he was there to gut our model. He wanted us to pivot away from full production and become a design-only firm, letting other contractors manufacture the boards. It was a cold, sterile plan. And I knew what it meant. Layoffs were coming. Still, I buried myself in the work. I was doing the job of 3 people and trying to keep the big customers satisfied without a formal contract. One day, our GM calls me in and assigns me a task. Explain why we can't meet big customers' new supplier contract reporting requirements. But here's the twist, we already were. I'd been delivering everything they needed for over a year. He just never read a single report I sent, despite being CC'd on every email. His eyes widened like saucers. "How is that possible?" he asked. I just told him. "It is. Because I did my job." But that moment of realization didn't change the inevitable. I knew his endgame. The pivot to design only meant I was expendable. And then, it hit me, literally. The stress caught up. I developed a severe internal infection and collapsed at home. I was rushed to the hospital and spent an entire week recovering. I hadn't even seen it coming. I was in so deep, I didn't realize I was burning out from the inside. The following Monday, still weak but determined, I returned to work. At 10 a.m., I was called in and laid off. Just like that. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I asked for 24 hours to review the termination paperwork, shook hands, and walked out. Quiet. Composed. But inside, I was seething. It was 2009. The Great Recession had begun. Jobs were scarce. I was terrified. But by some miracle, I landed a new role a month later. It paid 25% less, but it paid. And I was safe. Then, the calls started. First, it was my old boss, Not the GM, the manager who actually liked me. He was in a panic, asking about those reports. I answered his questions plainly, but gave no extra help. He was lost without me, and he knew it. Then came the second call. We want to rescind your layoff. Please come back. Thanks, no thanks. Then came the GM himself. Same offer. He added a veiled threat. If I refused, they'd report it to the state, and I'd lose my unemployment benefits. Thanks, no thanks. What he didn't know. I no longer needed unemployment. I had moved on. And then, the third and final call. My old boss again. This time, the offer was juicy. Reinstated service. All my invested stock options restored. Full PTO rollover. Tempting, right? But I remembered the cold layoff. The hospital bed. The indifference. Thanks, no thanks. He asked me to sign a formal refusal. Thanks, no thanks. A week later, word spread, the GM was gone. No explanation. Just vanished. A month later, the company was sold off to a bigger, more capable supplier. All my former teammates were retained. My boss got to stay. But the empire the GM tried to build without understanding the foundation? Crumbled. They thought I was just a cog. Replaceable. Disposable. But I was the one holding the system together. The reports, the relationships, the trust, all of it. When I left, everything fell apart. Slowly, then all at once. And when they finally saw it, it was too late. I never yelled. Never got revenge the loud way. I just moved forward quietly. Stronger. Smarter. And they collapsed without me. Sometimes, the best revenge is no revenge at all. Just moving on, thriving, and letting the past burn itself down without you. They tried to break me, but all they did was show me my worth. If this story hit that sweet spot of karma and quiet triumph, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories just like this. Share your own tale of workplace revenge in the comments below. Until next time, stay sharp, and don't let anyone write your value for you. She tried to ruin my future with a single phone call. What she didn't know was that I'd end up destroying her entire career, her education, and every last one of her delusional dreams, and she paid me to do it. If you've ever dealt with a toxic coworker or wished karma would finally show up on time, smash that like button. Subscribe for more tales where revenge isn't just served, it's savored. Now let's dive in. A few years back, I landed a job at a small hardware company, nothing fancy, but it got me off the graveyard shift and into a steady desk gig. There were 4 of us in the office: Ray, the frugal but easygoing owner, Sarah, the sweet and bubbly receptionist, me, in charge of logistics and web management, and finally Ingrid. Ingrid. The name alone makes my blood pressure rise. Imagine every horrible coworker trope packed into one bitter, bloated, born-again ball of toxicity. That was Ingrid. Think Stephen King villain, but less charismatic. She saw me as a threat the moment I walked through the door. Maybe it was insecurity, maybe it was just her nature, but her fake smile and cold eyes told me everything I needed to know. At first, she kept her venom on a low simmer. Vile gossip, passive-aggressive barbs, endless complaints about women being too fat or annoying, while she herself carried 3 chins and a nasal lisp that could pierce drywall. She judged everyone through a hypocritical Christian lens, condemning others while bragging about her son screaming at immigrants in public. Every day, it felt like working next to a dumpster fire fueled by bigotry and insecurity. But I kept my head down. I figured I could ignore her and focus on the work. Until she made it personal. Building conflict. Ingrid started reporting me for everything. If I didn't say good morning, I was being rude. If something went wrong, I was to blame. She even claimed I wasn't entering customer orders she supposedly gave me. That ended fast when I started date stamping every order and checking in hourly with Ray and Sarah. Still, she didn't stop. She wanted me gone, plain and simple. Then came the final straw. Ray had once given her a generous commission for landing a large client through a personal contact. When I found a potential client through a friend, Ray promised me the same deal if I could get them to submit a sample order. I busted my ass, emails, calls, follow-ups. For weeks, I was grinding to get that order in. Then, silence. I finally tracked down the buyer. Turns out he did call. But when he did, Ingrid answered the phone. She told him, flat out, that we didn't have the capacity to handle his order. She tanked my deal. Killed my commission. Sabotaged my chance to save for a down payment on a house. For what? Spite? At that moment, I felt something click inside me. A calm, cold clarity. You don't just mess with my paycheck. You mess with my future? You better prepare to lose yours. Ingrid had been taking community college courses after hours. You've heard that right. This hateful, judgmental monster wanted to be a therapist. The thought alone made my soul cringe. She'd been doing her classwork at the office after Ray left, and one day, she turned to me. Hey, can you take this online quiz for me? Please? It's earth science, and I can't lie. I blinked. You can't lie? Lady, you lied to a potential client to sabotage me. But okay. She explained she couldn't answer the quiz questions truthfully because her faith didn't allow her to admit the Earth is older than 6,000 years. The mental gymnastics would make an Olympian sweat. And just like that, the trap set itself. I said sure. But for $20. She agreed. I took the quiz. Then another. Then a test. Then Spanish 101. Intro to Psychology. Another Earth Science quiz. Each one, $20 in my pocket. By semester's end, I made $200 off her desperation and laziness. I watched her grow more comfortable, more dependent. And then, like fate had given me the script herself, she asked me to write a 5-page research paper. $50, I said. She paid. I opened Google. Searched. Research paper for class name. First result. Copy. Paste. Change the name and date. Done. And then I waited. Ray returned from vacation. I handed in my 2 weeks' notice. I had a better job lined up, better pay, better coworkers, a clean slate. But I couldn't leave without delivering the final blow. The week before I left, I gave Ingrid her paper. She didn't even read it. Just turned it in and sauntered off, already daydreaming about her future therapy practice where she could spew judgment with a license. A week later, Sarah called me, laughing so hard I could barely understand her. The professor immediately flagged the paper as plagiarized. It wasn't even subtle. They pulled the original source word for word. The dean got involved. Ingrid's genius defense? I didn't plagiarize. The guy I paid to write it did. She was expelled. Banned from all affiliate programs in the state. No degree. No refund. Student loan debt piling up. Her dreams of becoming a therapist shattered like glass under a boot. On my final day, I poked my head into her office one last time. Thank you, Ingrid, for everything I learned working here. I hope you learned something from me too. I walked out smiling. Sometimes revenge isn't loud or violent. Sometimes it's a slow burn masterclass in poetic justice. The best part? When karma walks in wearing your face, and they paid admission. What's the worst coworker you've ever dealt with? Tell us in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who deserves a little revenge-fueled justice in their feed. Until next time, this has been the Revenge Podcast, where karma isn't just real, it's ruthless. They said I was a predator, lied to my boss, tried to erase my name, and ruined my future. They thought I'd just take it. What they didn't know was, I had been keeping receipts. Real ones. The kind that end marriages, jobs, and reputations. And when I was done, both of them wished they'd never even heard my name. If you've ever had your reputation dragged through the mud by liars, then hit that subscribe button. Like this video, and buckle up. Because today, revenge isn't just served cold, it's served with receipts, court documents, and career-ending emails. Let's get into it. I used to work as a site supervisor for a security contractor stationed at a local factory. It wasn't glamorous, but I had worked my way up. After a few years of working every shift under the sun, I finally had my own post and a title to go with it. My job? Manage the guard booth, log every entry, monitor the cameras, and basically make sure nothing exploded while the factory workers did their thing. The work was manageable. Boring, even. But boring becomes a blessing when you're burned out. And believe me, by the end, I was burning on fumes. Now, let me make this clear. There were no saints in this story. I'm not gonna pretend I wore a halo. But I was good at my job. Fair. Professional. Never crossed the line. Not once. But that didn't matter to some people. There were two people who dragged me into this war. The first was Ted. Ted was a factory supervisor, the kind of guy who thinks coming up from the line gives him a license to treat everyone else like dirt. He had this complex, like the world owed him something just for surviving it. He bullied his workers, sucked up to higher-ups, and couldn't stand anyone who didn't stroke his ego. And he hated me. Why? Because I didn't kiss the ring. I didn't bow down. I followed protocol, wrote incident reports when workers reported harassment or abuse, and didn't let Ted's bark scare me. That alone made me enemy number one in his book. The second person was my so-called replacement. See, toward the end of 2020, COVID had gutted our staff. 3 of us were pulling 12-hour shifts around the clock. No time off. No backup. No rest. We were surviving on caffeine and willpower. Eventually, the other 2 guards quit, and I couldn't blame them. I was already halfway out the door myself. I gave my 2-week notice and made it clear I wasn't working more than 12 hours a day. The company finally found a replacement, a woman I trained for 1 full day. I gave her everything, a schedule matching mine so she could shadow me, a full walkthrough of the site, even helped dealing with Ted and the sensitive files we guarded. I had gone to bat with factory admin to keep her setup smooth. So imagine my surprise when I found out, on my last day, that she had gone to my boss and said I made her feel unsafe. That I was intimidating. Let me be clear, I'm a big guy. I work out. But I have a strict rule. I don't mix business and pleasure. Ever. And everyone at that job knew it. I had never so much as flirted at work. That's why this hit so hard. I wasn't just angry. I was betrayed. The accusation nearly got me fired. On my last week. With 0 evidence from someone I spent a full shift helping. I was exhausted. Running on no sleep for months. I had a partner flying out to visit me in 2 weeks and was ready to move on with my life. But the sting of that betrayal stuck with me. I left without raising hell. But that should have been the end. Instead, it was the beginning. Because Ted found out about the accusation and took it 1 step further. He started telling people I had been fired for sexual harassment. That I was a serial harasser. That I had forced a former female guard to quit, which was rich, considering she left because she had disciplinary write-ups and I got promoted over her. Reputation matters. Especially in security. That kind of rumor doesn't just hurt your ego. It kills future jobs. And I don't take kindly to being lied about. Now, here's the part where my past life came in handy. See, before this gig, I was a computer tech. And after one boss nearly got me fired over something he told me to do, with 0 paper trail to back me up, I made a promise. I would always have a paper trail. Enter the MAD folders. Mutually assured destruction. Every person I thought might screw me over got a file. Hidden away. Encrypted. Out of sight. Just in case. Ted had a folder. And oh boy, it was loaded. Working in security meant access to camera footage. And factories, especially in small towns, are colorful. Turns out, Ted had built himself a little private harem. He rewarded women with better line positions, in exchange for certain favors. I had photos, videos, timestamps. So I made a choice. I sent a lovely package, A greatest hits compilation, to Ted's wife. And his oldest daughter. 20 years of marriage, 4 daughters, 2 in college, and 1 about to graduate. I don't know what happened after, but I can imagine. But I wasn't done. Because the woman who accused me? She lit the match that let Ted spread those lies. And she wasn't as innocent as she wanted people to believe. During her single day of training, she had asked some odd questions. About phones. About camera quality. About company policies. A few red flags started waving in my head. Turns out, she had an OnlyFans. Now listen, I don't care what people do in their personal time. But our contract was clear. No sex work. Not on your time off, not ever. Our clients spanned Vegas to conservative countries in Europe, and the company had a strict no-tolerance policy. It was grounds for immediate termination. I tracked it down. And sure enough, she had a premium snap too. So I compiled a little package. Sent it to 3 groups. My former employer, so they knew the truth. The IRS, just in case she wasn't reporting that income. Her ex, who was in a custody battle. Because in our state, judges don't look kindly on sex work. They assume the worst: drugs, unsafe environments, bad role models. And I just gave her ex all the ammo he need to get split custody, at least. It was brutal. It was calculated. But it was earned. You don't get to lie about someone to save your own skin and walk away clean. Ted? His empire of manipulation collapsed. His home life? Ruined. His workplace power? Disintegrated. Her? She went from weaponizing lies to facing consequences that could echo for years. And me? I walked away clean. Name intact. Reputation protected. All because I kept receipts. Sometimes the quiet ones are the ones you really shouldn't mess with. Not because they're weak, but because they're watching, listening, documenting. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it clicks quietly in the background, then explodes when it needs to. If you stuck around for this wild ride, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life revenge stories that hit hard. Have you ever had to defend your name against lies? Or gotten sweet payback? Drop it in the comments. I read every one. And remember, always keep your receipts. If there's one thing all these stories have shown us, it's that the workplace can be a battlefield in disguise. Some people show up, clock in, and do their best, even when they're exhausted, underpaid, and drowning in responsibility. Others? They show up with hidden daggers, wearing fake smiles while scheming behind closed doors. And far too often, it's the liars, the manipulators, and the lazy cowards who get ahead. But here's the truth that corporate snakes never see coming. Some of us pay attention. Some of us remember everything. And when the time is right, we don't scream. We document. We build our mad folders. We wait. Whether it's a manager who climbs the ladder by stomping on everyone beneath him, or a coworker who hurls accusations just to escape accountability, or someone so toxic they'd sabotage your future just to make themselves feel bigger. Eventually, karma walks in wearing a visitor badge. What makes workplace revenge hit so hard is that most of us have been there. We've swallowed the disrespect. We've watched someone else take credit for our effort. We've been told to be professional, while someone else played dirty. But when you're finally able to expose the lies, to take back your dignity, to hit reset on a system that was stacked against you, that's not just revenge. That's justice in its rawest, most satisfying form. These stories aren't just petty. They're proof that even when you're underestimated, alone, or cornered, you are never powerless. Your silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the calm before a storm no one saw coming. So whether you've been burned by a smug boss or backstabbed by a coworker, keep your eyes open. Keep your receipts. Because one day the tables turn. And when they do, it's your move.